Hey everybody, thanks for joining. We're just waiting to go live on Facebook and then we'll kick off today's topic discussing entities and entity formation for investment and also for realtors. All right, and it looks like we're live. So good Thursday morning, everyone. This is Patrick Kappel here with your investment series. As you all know, I'm a realtor myself, working with Compass on the Kappel Realty team based out of San Diego. I've got a team of 10 agents, a couple of staff members, and like a lot of you, we're having a pretty good and interesting year in 2020 in the real estate market. So one thing I wanted to discuss as a topic during this series is what to do with entity formation. Now, that's a big topic, and we're going to cover it from two different prongs. So first, we're going to talk about entities and investment real estate. A lot of you are working with investors and they might ask you, hey, how should I hold title to this property? Should I have it in an LLC? Should I put it into a C Corp? Don't. Should I put it into my name? Should I put it into a trust? So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of various entities that you might want to hold your real estate in. Also for you as a realtor, hopefully you're out there investing yourself. And you're probably questioning, how should I hold my real estate? Number two, we're going to talk about how should you be structured as a realtor, especially a lot of you new realtors. I'm guessing you might have just joined, got your real estate license, and you hit the ground running as a sole proprietor. Should you be a sole proprietor? Should you be a C Corp? Should you be an S Corp? What's the difference between all these things? We'll talk about that today as well. So this is going to be good for investors and your investor clients. And this is going to be good for all of you realtors out there that are wondering what type of business structure should you hold yourself in. If we have time, we'll dive into some spreadsheets after that. Today is more conversational, talking about these various entities. So I'm not going to dive deep into PowerPoints, but I am going to cover a lot of keywords. I'm going to throw a few numbers at you, and I'm going to give you the pros and the cons of each entity formation. So make sure you got a pen and paper and you're taking notes. I'll preface this by saying, hey, look, as you all know, I'm a realtor. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. So I've got to say this, I can't give tax advice and I cannot give legal advice, but I can tell you what I know based on what I do. And my background, as you all know, again, is also not just real estate, but academic. I went to UCLA to get a master's degree, MBA with a focus in finance. I helped out as a teaching assistant for a taxation course out there. And then I went on to get a master's degree in real estate. So I've taken a fair amount of tax courses, fair amount of legal courses, but I am not a legal, not an attorney. But I can tell you what I do and why. So first, let's talk about investment real estate. What should you hold it in? A lot of times we have clients that are buying an investment and they ask us, how should I hold title? Sometimes the answer is talk to escrow, talk to the title company, but it's good if you can give them a little bit of an answer. And you too, when you talk with your clients, should give them the same preface I just did, say, hey, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney. The answer I don't like realtors giving is, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to answer your question. You're providing them zero value. If you could say, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a CPA, but here's what I know. Here's what I'll share with you, and then double check it. That allows you to provide a level of value that a lot of realtors aren't. So let's talk about the different entities. The first is you can just hold it in your name. You can hold it in your name as an individual. You can hold it in your name with your spouse. And that is really the basic level of ownership that I would say the majority of Americans hold title to their real estate in, especially if it's just a single family home that they live in. Now, when it comes to investment real estate, you can still hold title just in your name. I don't. I don't know if I'd recommend that for various reasons. Now, when I started investing in real estate, I read a lot of books, podcasts, you name it, that said you got to hold it in an LLC. You must hold it in an LLC, right? That's what the books say. That's what the podcasts say. Why do they say that? Well, there are some benefits to it. I'll tell you, I used to hold a lot of my real estate in LLCs. I don't necessarily anymore, and I know a lot of very wealthy folks that don't, and I'll explain why here. LLC. limited liability corporation. By the name itself, it tells you you've got some limited liability. So let's say I own a property. We'll give the property an address, 123 First Avenue. I own property at 123 First Avenue. It's a duplex. And let's say I've got it in an LLC. Not my name, not a trust, just an LLC. And someone slips, trips, falls down. Now there's a lawsuit. What's going to happen? Now, a lot of folks would say, hey, if it's in an LLC, you're protected because the lawsuit, the plaintiff, the tenant that slipped, tripped, and fell can sue the owner of the property, and the owner of the property is the LLC, not you. True, you own the LLC, you're the principal of the LLC, but they're going to sue the LLC, not you, and thus shield all of your assets outside of the LLC. So let's say you've got that duplex, and let's say 123 First Avenue is worth $600,000, and you've got a mortgage on it. That mortgage is $400,000. So you've got $200,000 equity in that property. Okay, keep following here because we're going to walk down this case study. $200,000 equity in that property. And then let's say you've got a checking account, savings account, a car, you got a house, maybe you've got some retirement accounts, and you've got some money sitting around in CDs. Your concern is you don't want that tenant to sue all your other assets, get all your other possessions, right? So lawsuit happens. First and foremost, the first thing that any attorney is going to go after is your insurance policy. Okay. Now you have it in an LLC. So maybe you've got an insurance policy that covers you on liability up to $250K, maybe even $500,000. A lot of people with real estate will have insurance policies up to $250,000 to $500,000. But they're suing you big time. Maybe they're suing you for even more than $500,000. Well, they're first going to go after that insurance policy and try and get whatever they can out of that. All right. Next, they're going to go after that LLC because it owns it. And as we already discussed, you've got a $600,000 property, $400,000 loan. You have $200,000 equity that they can go after and try to liquidate. Now, if all goes as you planned, having an LLC, that's where things stop. They go after your insurance. They go after what's held inside of that LLC. End of story. That's all you lose. But what if it's a $1 million lawsuit? What if it's a $2 million lawsuit? What if it's more than your insurance? What if it's more than the value you have in equity in that property? Good attorneys can try and do something called pierce the corporate veil. That's a key word. You can look it up, pierce the corporate veil. Because every corporation, the law is not stupid, judges aren't dumb, and certainly attorneys are not. They know a lot of times folks, like investors, might set up that LLC simply as a veil, a corporate veil, to protect that individual behind the veil. Okay? So how do you pierce that corporate veil? Well, a good attorney could say, look, that investor who owns 123 First Avenue set up the LLC not for business purposes, but just to create a corporate veil, just to try to protect themselves from lawsuit. But they weren't doing annual meetings. They weren't doing quarterly minutes. The rents coming in were going to that individual's checking account, not a business checking account. The lease is with that individual, not with the business. You kind of get what I'm saying. They're saying that there is no differentiation between the owner and the corporation. So if you're going to set up an LLC to hold an investment property, or if your client is, you had darn well better make sure that that LLC operates as a complete separate individual entity, and you operate as a complete separate individual entity. You want different bank accounts. You want to be filing a tax return. You want, and it's a pass-through entity. We can get through that in a minute. You want to be putting the name of the lease in that LLC. You want to do everything possible to show that LLC, that corporation, is a separate entity and not you. Now, a good attorney can probably pierce that corporate veil and still get through the LLC to you and show that you ought to hold some level of liability as well. If they pierce that corporate veil, now they can start going into your bank accounts, your savings accounts, take your car away, take your house away, and start suing you for everything that you own. So there is some risk that still exists, even with holding your assets in an LLC. Along with piercing the corporate veil, here's another way a good attorney could probably find their way around it. Let's say you own that duplex, 123 First Avenue. And a tenant, again, I'm going to use the kind of textbook analogy, tenant slips, trips, and falls. Or, God forbid, there's a fire and all the tenants die or get injured and the smoke alarms weren't working, okay? Who else can be sued besides the owner? Because you and I know that when a lawsuit happens in the United States of America, attorneys will look at anyone and everyone that they can stick a lawsuit to, and they'll try and sue them. So who else can be sued besides the owner? The property manager. The property manager can, of course, be sued. So what if you're the owner of the property, you hold it in an LLC, but you're also the property manager, and you're not managing it through an LLC, you're just managing it yourself. And client slips, trips, and falls, they can't get through that corporate veil because you got a Loctite ship and you've been doing everything you should for a corporation. So they sue the property manager, and you haven't been doing everything as a corporation for the property manager. Now they might be able to come around and sue you as a property manager and still liquidate all your assets outside of that LLC. So why do I say all this? I'm not saying don't put your property in LLC. If you want to put your property in LLC, do it. It gives you a layer of protection that we just discussed. But do not have the misconception that an LLC is going to protect you from any and all things that might come your way in a lawsuit. You really got to be walking that fine line. Now, someone I see in the chat, ask away questions, guys, as I'm talking. Someone asked, is it possible to create an LLC for each investment property in case of a lawsuit? So they'll only go after one property, not the others. Yes, absolutely. In fact, you might be better off creating an LLC for every single property. Every individual investor is different. Everyone has a different net worth. Everyone has different income. Everyone has different levels of insurance. So everyone that owns investment real estate needs to talk with both an attorney and a CPA to figure out what is best for them. A attorney once gave advice, an attorney that I well respect, once gave some good advice, and he said, look, I would recommend for every $500,000 of equity you have in real estate, have an LLC. So if investor number one owns two properties, and between the two properties, one has 300,000 equity and one has 200,000 equity, maybe he'll put that in one LLC. And then maybe they got another property they own free and clear with 500,000 equity, and they put that in a separate LLC. Or maybe you want no more than 1 to 200,000 per LLC equity. Or maybe you want just simply, it doesn't matter how much equity you have in the property, $1 or $1 million, you just want a separate LLC for each property. Jose asked that question. That's a very good question. The answer is absolutely yes. You can have a separate LLC for different properties. If you own 5 properties, you can have 5 LLCs, one for each one. If you own 5 properties, you can have 1 LLC. Put all 5 in that 1 LLC. But what's the risk to that? If of those 5 properties, one of them gets a lawsuit, the attorney, even if they can't pierce a corporate veil, they can go after all 5 properties, and you could lose all 5 properties. So whatever's in that LLC, folks, can get sued. Whatever's outside of that LLC might be able to get sued. if they can pierce the corporate veil. So do not get the misconception that an LLC is going to protect you from any and all things. Another person asked, do you self-manage or do you hire a property manager? That's a great question. And to answer that question, I'll say both. I've done both. I've done self-management. I've done the property management route. I would recommend, and here's what I recommend to a lot of first-time owners. Get the advice of a property manager, but maybe try and manage it a bit yourself as well. Why do I say that? Because if you're going to hire a property manager, you want to know what you're paying for. Okay, you want to know what you're paying for. And property management can be a lot of work. It can also be really easy, depending on the property, depending on the tenants. So you be the judge, and I kind of filter which properties I want a property manager for and which ones I want to manage myself. But if you don't have a lot going on, especially a lot of young investors that we help start out in their 20s and 30s, and maybe real estate's their side hustle, I'll recommend to that client, manage it yourself, but here's a property manager who will give you advice to make sure you do it right. Or here's a property manager that maybe you can pay full price and shadow them for a year or two, and then you take it over. Now, if an individual is not licensed, and they don't have a real estate license, I don't know about you, but in my state of California, you need a real estate license to manage real estate, unless you're just managing real estate you own yourself. The challenge there is managing real estate you own yourself. If you don't have a license, you might not know what you're doing, and you're exposing yourself to more lawsuits. So John Williams asked this from a liability protection standpoint. As an owner, you limit your liability even more by having a property manager manage it for you than you managing it yourself. For two reasons. One, you limit it more because a property manager knows what they're doing. A novice investor that doesn't have management experience isn't going to do everything correctly. We know that for a fact. They're not going to serve notices correctly. They might not do inspections correctly. So you limit liability by having a manager manage for you. And number two, you limit liability because if things go wrong and someone's going to get sued, it's going to be that manager. But again, I recommend to a lot of my clients, if anything, hire a manager and just shadow them, watch them, see what you're paying for. On that note, though, a lot of folks will complain about the fee that they have to pay a property manager. They might say, I don't want to pay someone 8%. I don't want to pay someone 10%. Keep in mind that that manager is getting paid not just for the work they do, but also for liability that they're carrying. They're taking some liability off your shoulders for that 8 to 10%. So that's LLCs in a nutshell. Couple last tidbits I'll give on LLCs is in many states, you can create an LLC, you pay an attorney a one-time fee, the attorney creates the LLC for you, and you pay no more fees. You got your LLC for the rest of your life. And I mentioned the word attorney. I would definitely recommend hiring someone to put your LLC together. If you're wealthy enough to invest in real estate, you're wealthy enough to pay an attorney for a couple hours of their time to create your LLC instead of doing it on some online do-it-yourself type of thing that you might have mistakes in. Second thing, though, where you can do it for free in a lot of states, state of California, not quite the same. In the state of California, and a lot of you out there might be in California like me, you have to pay to set your LLC up. And then every single year, you have to pay an annual fee to the state of California. The California FTB, Franchise Tax Board, requires that you pay them $800 a year for every LLC. So this goes back to Jose's question. What if you own 5 properties and there's not a lot of equity in each one? Do you want 5 LLCs in California and you're paying $800 per LLC? Or do you want just 1 or 2 LLCs? Because that $800 a month, or excuse me, $800 a year can quickly add up if you're racking and stacking on a lot of LLCs. So that's one thing to go into your calculus, okay? In California, an LLC is going to cost you $800 a year. And with your state, check your state. I don't know the other 49 states because I don't live the other 49 states and I don't do business in the other 49 states. So if you live in a state other than California, check to see if you just pay a one-time fee, no fee, or if you have to pay an annual fee. Someone here is asking, if an investor lives in Boston, but the property is in Texas, do you register the LLC in Texas or up in Boston? Now, you need to, again, check with your state. I know in California, if I own a bunch of property in California, they are not going to look kindly on me setting up about a bunch of out-of-state entities owning things in California. California likes to ensure it claws that money back into its state. Most oftentimes, folks are going to set up the LLC in the state that the property exists in. Okay. So again, this is where you need to talk with an attorney in your state. You need to talk with a CPA in your state. In fact, my sister wants to draft a will, and she lives in North Dakota. And she said, hey, Patrick, can you connect me with a good attorney? I'm like, yeah, I could connect you with a good attorney, but it's a California attorney, and you would be foolish to have a California attorney draft a will for someone in North Dakota. And that goes with every legal entity in every state, because we have two laws in the United States of America. We have federal law and we have state law. Almost every attorney is going to be somewhat versed in federal law to a degree. And then most attorneys are going to be extremely well versed in the state law of the state they practice in, for wills, for trust, for LLC formation, for real estate. So whatever of the 50 states you live in, talk to an attorney that specializes in your state, your area. Yeah, and someone here, Dietrich, thank you. You mentioned that in California, you have to set up in California. I was pretty sure of that, and thank you for solidifying that. Yes, you must set up with a California LLC, which makes sense. Otherwise, years and years ago when I created my LLCs, I probably would have done other states where I didn't have to pay. Any other questions about LLCs? Put those out there, but let's talk about another entity, one that I like quite a bit, and that is the trust. So what is a trust? A lot of times for those of you out there that maybe don't have a trust or don't have a will, you hear about wills, you hear about trusts, okay? Personally, I recommend you have both, and I don't think you need to be a multimillionaire to have both. I think both, especially a will, are a good idea to have. So what is a will? What is a trust? And how do they interrelate with real estate and the ownership and investment in it? Well, first of all, a will just states, hey, when I die, this is what I want to happen. X, Y, and Z. My car goes here, my house goes there, my investment real estate goes there, my 401k goes to that person. A will kind of lays out the parameters of what happens to your assets. You can also have written into wills health advisories. When do you want to pull the plug on you? So I highly recommend everyone out there get a will drafted up. Now, a will in itself will not get you out of probate. Now, a lot of you might be like, oh, what's probate? This is a new key word. What's probate? Probate is a process that happens through the legal system, through the court system, through the government, when somebody dies and they don't leave behind a trust. So when you die, you're dead. Your social security number, gone. A will is not a living entity in that it doesn't have its own tax ID number, okay? The government doesn't know me as Patrick Kappel. The government knows me by my tax ID number. The government doesn't know you by your name. The government knows you by your tax ID number. Wills don't have tax ID numbers, okay? So once you die, boom, you're wiped out. That will lives for a little bit just to kind of like, and it doesn't even live, but it just gives direction what should happen to all your assets. And that will has to go through probate, the court system. Now, if you die and you don't leave behind much, there's a numerical dollar threshold at which if you die below that threshold, it doesn't go through probate. I think it used to be like 40,000. It's probably a little higher now. But if you die and not that wealthy, don't worry. But if you die and you leave behind a house, car, savings accounts, retirement accounts, the government is going to want to make sure your will is executed properly. Thus, probate involves attorneys and the court systems that oversee the disbursement of your assets in accordance with your will. Now, probate can last months, can last half a year to a year. Probate can last a while. And probate can cost money. Even after death, you're paying money, because who are you paying? You're paying the attorneys and you're paying the court systems. And that is what happens if you have a will. So don't think, hey, if I got a will, I'm taken care of, I can die and everything's taken care of. No, if you have a will, still going to go through probate, still going to go through the court system. It probably varies slightly based on state to state, which again is why you want to meet with an attorney that specializes in wills and trusts in your state that you live in. So what's the next step above a will? And let me be clear. For sure, just have a will. If you have nothing else, just have a will. But the next step above a will is a trust. So what is a trust? A trust gets a tax ID number. The trust is a living entity in the eyes of the government. So after you die and your social security number is now dead, your trust is still alive. And anything that is still alive can still make decisions. So a trust is a way for you to rule from the grave. Maybe you've heard that phrase before: rule from the grave, make decisions from the grave, govern from the grave. And that is by putting instructions in your trust of what will happen and what shall happen even after your death. Because it's recognized by the IRS, it's still a living entity. A trust, even after you die, your estate files one more tax return, and then you never have to file tax returns again. You're dead. After you die, your trust can live on for years and years and years. And every single year, your trust keeps on filing tax returns. Your trust can make money. Your trust can sign contracts. Your trust is a living entity, and it lives by the instructions you left in it. So if you hold your assets in a trust, then when you die, you don't necessarily have to go through probate. I say necessarily because if you have assets outside of the trust, they might have to go through probate. So the goal is to put all your assets inside of your trust so that when you die, your family's attorney can look at the trust and say, hey, you get this, you get that, you get this, and X, Y, and Z stays in the trust for the grandkids. So I guess what I'm getting at is no matter what, by the time you get to the level of having investment real estate, you're probably starting to build some wealth. You absolutely should have a trust, which begs the question, how does that relate to an LLC? Well, remember, I told you can put everything in a trust. You can put retirement accounts, you can put life insurance, you can put savings accounts, checking accounts, automobiles, houses, investment, real estate. You can put it all in a trust, okay? And you can put LLCs in a trust. So if you put your investment real estate in an LLC, you then want to put that LLC in the trust, okay? So that if and when you die, not if, I guess when you die, that LLC is in the trust, and there's directives about what shall happen to the investment real estate. Now, someone's asking me, what is the difference between a living trust and a business trust? I'm not well versed in business trusts, haven't done one, so I don't want to speak to that. What I will speak to, though, are two types of trusts that often come up, and that's a revocable and a non-revocable trust. A revocable trust simply means that you can make changes to it. You can make just about any change you can imagine under the moon to that trust. A non-revocable trust means this is it. It's written in pen and ink. It's written in permanent marker, and you're not going to make any further changes to it. A non-revocable trust is one where usually it's kind of like a blind trust. You just create it, and then you don't want to look at it. You have other people managing it, other people operating it, and you don't get a say to what changes with it. Now, Renee is asking, can you have different trusts per property? Yes, I suppose you could. And I suppose maybe there's reasons to do so. More often than not, most people are going to have one trust. and put all their property in that one trust. The only reason I can think of having different trusts is, let's say you're a single woman and you own a bunch of real estate and you're independently wealthy and you're in your 30s and you have a trust. And maybe you have a child and you want everything going to that kid. And then you get married to a guy that you met at the bar last night. And you want to start building wealth with him. Maybe you want a separate trust with him compared to the trust that you have that you created before you met that guy last night and you want to leave to your kids. Someone else is asking, so yeah, there's some times where you might want different trusts. When you want different trusts per property, it's not so much for asset protection. Different trusts per property, different trusts would be more so, who do you want controlling it? Okay, because a trust is going to name one or multiple people that control it, and it's going to name one or multiple people or entities that benefit from it, i.e., who gets to determine what happens to this trust. Usually, married couple like my wife and I, or you and your spouse, a married couple will usually have husband and wife as the decision makers on the trust. And then the benefactors of that trust, you can decide who that could be. The only reason you would have different trusts is if you have different people that want to control it, and that's about it. Because you can always vary who you want to benefit from it. Someone else is asking, after you set up a trust, how do you put your real estate under the trust? That's a great question. And this is why you do not set these things up online. You set them up with an attorney that is specializes in trusts and wills. Oftentimes we call them estate attorneys. So if you just, like, I live in San Diego, if you just type into a search, San Diego estate attorney, that would be someone to look for. If you live in Boston, search for a Boston estate attorney. And that estate attorney will tell you exactly what you should do based on your individual circumstances. They'll look at your whole profile, and they'll get you set up. Now, how do you put real estate into it? That estate attorney will help you do it. In California, remember, real estate law is not a national law. It's a state-specific law. That's why I keep saying in California, because I don't know what they do in your state. But in California, all you have to do is sign a quit claim deed and quit claim your property from your name to the name of your trust. There's no money exchanged. Tax basis doesn't go up because there's not a real sale happening. You're just transferring that property from your name to the name of the trust. Why do you want an attorney to help you with this, or at least a reputable title company? Because if you do it wrong, you might accidentally trigger a sale. Even though you're not selling it, you're just transferring it. You don't want to trigger a sale because that could reset your tax basis and all kinds of sale implications. So work with a professional attorney and or title company to transfer that property from your name into the name of that trust. Someone asked me, is it okay to do it with just a title company? You know, the first time I did it with an attorney. They helped me out well. But yes, it's okay to do it with the title company. If you're a realtor and you're good friends with someone that works at a title company, they can help you out and they can do that transfer of assets for you between trusts to LLCs, to your name, back to your trust again. You can transfer it 10 times a year if you want to, because it's just arm's length transaction between you holding it in different types of entities, and it should not trigger a sale. Excuse me. So that is a trust. I recommend all of you have a will. I recommend all of you have a trust. Now, let's talk about how should you hold real estate? Should you hold it in an LLC? I already told you if you're going to hold it in an LLC, you should then hold that LLC in your trust, and you should be the trustor, the trustee of that trust, so that you are currently, while you're alive, the one controlling the trust and also the benefactor of that trust, the assets within it. And then you can name who's going to benefit from the trust after you die. Let's talk about a third entity. And I'm talking about all these entities, guys, and in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to tie them all together and give you a recommendation on how they all work together to protect you and your investments. So the third entity isn't really an entity. It's a layer of asset protection. You could probably guess what it is. I already mentioned it, and that is insurance. So let's talk about insurance for a second, especially because we were talking about an LLC, and I told you all that an LLC might not protect you as much as you might think it protects you. But what does protect you? Insurance. I highly, highly, highly recommend you insure yourself even before you think about an LLC. You want good insurance. As said in the legal world, insurance is your first line of defense. I also mentioned that a lot of people will carry maybe $250,000, at the most $500,000 in insurance. You may or may not know this, but typically you can have insurance policies up to $1 million, okay? And very rarely do lawsuits go above $1 million. You really have to mess up to have a lawsuit go above $1 million. You've probably maimed somebody for life, or you probably killed somebody or just did something really horrible. But lawsuits do go above $1 million, but a good $1 million policy should protect you pretty darn well as that first line of defense. Now, the step up in cost between a $250K, a $500,000 policy, and a $1 million policy is relatively minimal and well worth it for your asset protection. Because let's do that case study again. Remember that guy that owns 1234 First or 123 First Avenue, and I told you all that it is a $600,000 property, and you had a $400,000 mortgage. So you have $200,000 equity. Okay, let's change the story a little bit. Let's say it's an $800,000 property, and you only owe $100,000 on the mortgage. So you have $700,000 equity in the property. And you think you're pretty well protected because that $800,000 property is in an LLC. And you've got a $500,000 insurance policy on it. Bad day comes and you get sued. Someone got hurt. And you're getting sued for, let's toss out a number, $1 million. Let's say the attorney looks at how much equity do you have in the property? And that's what an attorney is going to do, trust me. And they see you have an $800,000 property. They see that you owe $100,000. Guess what they're going to sue you for? You've got $700,000 equity that they're going to try and go after. They're also going to look at your insurance though too. And they see that you have a $500,000 policy. But let's say in this instance, the court of law determines, hey, the amount of damage you did to this human being is worthy of $1 million. Maybe it's worthy of a bit much, but around that amount. They're going to sue you. And let's say they win. Well, your $500,000 policy is going to kick in most likely and cover you for the first $500,000 that you owe on that $1 million lawsuit. So where does the other $500,000 come from? Guess what? You're liquidating that asset. Because remember, the LLC is supposed to shelter you from lawsuits inside of the bubble of that LLC, but it's not going to shelter the property. The property's in the LLC. And for most real estate investors, a large portion of their net worth is in their real estate. And now you've got an $800,000 property. You owe $100,000. So you have $700,000 equity. And you only had $500,000 more, $500,000 insurance, and you're getting sued for $1 million. You need another $500,000. You're going to have to liquidate that property, and the plaintiff now just got the property off of you, and you just lost $500,000 net worth. If they get the whole property, you just lost $700,000 net worth. So if you're like most real estate investors, and the majority of your net worth, or a large substantial portion of your net worth, might be in the real estate you own, the LLC is not protecting you, because you is you. You is your net worth. You is your net worth. And the majority of your net worth might be in these real estate assets. And the day you get sued, if you don't have enough insurance, your net worth is dropping like a rock. And that LLC is not protecting your net worth. When people say an LLC protects you, they're wrong. That is a That is a lie. That is not the correct statement. An LLC protects what you have outside of the LLC, maybe. Big keyword, maybe. Because remember, we talked about the piercing the corporate veil, and we all know that an LLC, even if it does protect everything outside the LLC, is not going to protect the assets in the LLC. Why am I driving that point home? Because I've seen people that hold property in LLCs, and they have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 net worth in LLC in that property, in that LLC. They get sued, they lose, and they lose all their net worth because it was held in an LLC that got sued, and they had equity in that property. So I am imploring upon you, and I'm not an insurance salesman. Maybe I should be, but I am imploring upon you that you should first, before you even think about having an LLC, your insurance ought to be maxed out. And usually maxed out insurance equals about $1 million. Most insurance companies will let you have up to $1 million insurance policy on your property. Now, before you go out and make all kinds of decisions and buy insurance policies and put together LLCs, talk to an attorney in your city or your town, talk to a CPA, figure out your personal situation, figure out the laws in your city, your town, your state to determine what is best for you. Most attorneys will tell you that insurance is your first line of defense. And before you start setting up entities, you ought to be maxing out your insurance, okay? Most attorneys will also tell you you should set up an LLC. Why? Because they get paid if you set up an LLC. Most attorneys will tell you to set up most attorneys will tell you to set up an entity because that's how attorneys make their money. Most insurance salesmen will tell you to max out your insurance because that's how they make their money. And I'm telling you, both are right. It's not a bad idea to have an entity. It's not a bad idea to max out your insurance. But the first thing you ought to do is max out that insurance. Now, you might be wondering, well, what if I get sued for more than $1 million? What if I get sued for more than $1 million? What if you get sued for $2, $3 million? You did really something bad. Well, talk to your insurance representative about something called an umbrella policy. Some of you may have heard of an umbrella policy. Some of you may not have heard of an umbrella policy. So let me explain what it is. Another key word here. An umbrella policy does just what the word says. It's an umbrella over your head that shields you from all of the lawsuits dropping on you, from all the various areas a lawsuit can come. You could have a tenant that sues you. You could get in an auto accident and get sued. You could be drinking on a third-story bar. You lean against the ledge. You knock over your beer bottle. Your beer bottle falls to the ground, hits someone on the head on the sidewalk, and kills them. Is your auto insurance going to cover you? Probably not. Is your home insurance going to cover you? Probably not. Is your LLC going to cover you? Probably not. Is your umbrella policy going to cover you? Probably. So an umbrella policy, those policies can usually be anywhere from 1 million on up to 5 million and even above. And those policies cover you from anything, anywhere, anytime, okay? Which leads me into another disadvantage, or let's not call it a disadvantage, let's call it a misconceived notion of an LLC. Again, everyone thinks an LLC protects them. Well, let's think about something for a moment, folks. The riskiest thing you do is not own real estate. The riskiest thing you do is not investing in real estate. The riskiest thing you do, and the riskiest thing I do, is drive a car. For every American in the United States, the riskiest thing we all do is driving cars. The riskiest thing we do that exposes us to lawsuits is driving cars. Because automobile accidents happen all the time. I think in one person's lifetime, you're going to have X amount of automobile accidents. I don't know the exact amount, but it's not like if, it's a when. So that is the riskiest thing you do. Now let's think about this. You own a bunch of real estate. It's all in an LLC. You think you're protected because it's in an LLC. And then one day you're out doing the riskiest thing that you do. You're driving a car. You get in an accident and you kill someone or you maim them for life, you name it. Now you're getting sued. And you're like, oh, don't worry, I got auto insurance. But you're like most Americans. And you only have $250,000 auto insurance. Maybe at the most you've got $500,000 auto insurance. Well, guess what's going to happen? Let's say you get hit with $1 million lawsuit. Heck, let's say you get hit with a $2 million lawsuit. You just killed a neurosurgeon. You don't want to hit doctors, okay? Because attorneys are going to look how much income was that guy making, and that's how much you're going to have to pay in this lawsuit. So let's say you killed someone or you maimed them, put them out for work, and that automobile accident, you got a $2 million lawsuit on you. And all you have is a $250,000 auto policy. Or maybe all you have is a $500,000 auto policy. Maybe you were smart and you went out and got $1 million auto policy. Nonetheless, that lawsuit comes your way and you're thinking, oh, well, my real estate at least is protected because my real estate is in an LLC. The answer to that, folks, is no. Because, well, the LLC might protect you from lawsuits coming up to you through the property. It doesn't necessarily protect the property from lawsuits coming down through you to the LLC. Why is that? Because if you lose a lawsuit, like an automobile lawsuit, that attorney could come after your car, your insurance policy, your house, your bank accounts, and any investments and stocks in companies that you own. What is the LLC? It's a company that you own. It's a stock that you own. You are the one individual who has ownership in that LLC. So the automobile accident attorney can come after your one share that you own in the LLC. And boom, your net worth goes up in smoke. And you just lost everything that you worked so hard for. So an LLC does not protect you as much as you think it does. It doesn't protect you from the riskiest thing you do, driving a car. If you get in that auto accident, attorney can come in and swoop all the assets out of that LLC because they'll sue you for your one share of that LLC. And it might not protect you if they pierce a corporate veil, if the lawsuit's in the LLC, the tenant. And if the lawsuit's in the LLC, the tenant, and they sue you, they're liquidating your LLC anyway and the assets you have in it. Okay, so before you even think about an LLC, make sure you're maxed out on your insurance. And here's something really crazy, guys. You can get like a $2 to $3 million umbrella insurance through a lot of insurance companies for around $1,000 a year. And do you remember how much a California LLC cost you? $800 a year. So would you rather spend $800 a year for an LLC that might protect you, but certainly doesn't protect your LLC and your assets from you and your car accidents and everything else you do? Or would you rather put that $800 towards millions of dollars of liability protection that protects you 24/7, no matter what you do, when you're doing it, how you're doing it? Now, if you want to fully cover yourself, you would go out there and you'd probably get $1 million automobile policy, $1 million policy on each property, a $3 to $5 million umbrella policy, and put every single property in its own LLC. Now you're probably protected to the teeth. Could you still lose everything? Potentially. You'd have to do something pretty bad. But that is being protected to the teeth. But before you even start talking about LLCs, you should max out that insurance and spend your money on really good insurance, because a lot of lawsuits where people lose their real estate and their investments might have nothing to do with real estate and investments and everything to do with that car accident that they got into. How do I know that? Because again, I've done this long enough and I've had enough clients. I was on the phone with a woman that was crying. And I was like, why are you crying? And she said, well, we're retired. We own real estate. We own it all in entities. My husband accidentally left a loaded handgun on the coffee table. And someone came over and shot themselves, a child. And now we're being sued for millions of dollars. And we're losing everything. The stuff we have in our trust, the stuff we have in our LLCs. And they had insurance, but they did not have enough insurance to cover the lawsuit. So they lost even their real estate that was inside of entities. Okay? So crazy things can happen. You can accidentally leave a loaded gun. You could get in a car accident. You can knock a beer bottle off the third floor of a building and hit someone in the head. Crazy things can happen. And if you really want to protect yourself, you don't need to protect so much you from your real estate. You need to protect your real estate from you. because you are the riskiest thing, not your real estate. Your lifestyle, driving cars, having fun, doing what you do. We are what cause lawsuits, not a building sitting there vacant. A building sitting there vacant, a lawsuit probably wouldn't be that high anyway, because you'd really have to find human fault in you again. Okay, buildings don't hurt people. Landlords and owners neglecting buildings hurt people. Okay, again, maybe I should be an insurance salesman, but I'm not. But you really ought to max yourself out to the teeth with your insurance before you even start talking about these entities. So why is everyone talking about entities, LLCs? Because it's cool, it's sexy. I got my name on a document that says I'm the CEO of an LLC. Isn't that cool? I own 5 companies. They're all LLCs that has real estate and I have no employee. Like, it sounds cool. That's why. Insurance sounds boring. Insurance is something grandma talks about, okay? But I'm telling you, grandma talks about it because grandma's lived longer than us and knows more than us. So you should max your stuff out on insurance. Got a couple of questions here on the side. Is there a specific kind of insurance policy you're talking about? Yeah, I'm talking about liability portion of your insurance. You're going to have, like, on like automobiles and homes, you're going to have insurance that covers collision, insurance that covers comprehensive, insurance that covers disasters, fires, flooding, you name it. The liability, you want your liability portion on that insurance rider to say as big of a number as you can make it say, with you still being able to afford that premium, okay? Because that liability portion on the automobile, the liability portion on your boat, on your house, on your investment property, that's what's covering you from lawsuits. And here's another good thing about insurance, guys, that I didn't even mention, and you really should know, compared to an LLC. Let's say you put all your property in an LLC, you think you're protected, you've got like a $250,000 insurance policy, and you get sued. You need an attorney to defend you. Who's going to defend you? Well, the person that really doesn't want to lose the money besides you is the insurance company, okay? If the insurance company has a $250,000 policy on you, the insurance most good insurance companies pay your legal fees. They will pay your legal fees. Why does the insurance company pay your legal fees? It's not because they like you, and it's not because they're nice. It's because they don't want to lose a lawsuit. Because if you lose a lawsuit, the insurance company is losing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So most good insurance companies will pay your legal fees. Now, if you have a $250,000 policy because you thought you're safe with an LLC, the insurance company is going to give you $250,000 attorneys, I would imagine. If you've got a $1 million policy, the insurance company is going to give you $1 million attorneys. If you've got your policy plus umbrella insurance, and you're insured up to 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, you better be sure that insurance company is going to send the best attorneys it has on staff to defend you. How do I know this? I don't work at insurance companies, so I don't know this. But it's not easy to read in between the lines and know that the more money an insurance company has to lose, the better the attorney and the harder they're going to fight it for you, okay? Now, if you have an LLC, who's going to pay for your attorneys? Insurance company doesn't care about your LLC. You're going to pay for your attorneys. In my opinion, getting the more insurance not only protects you from having to pay out big claims because you got big insurance, but it's probably, not certainly, but probably going to get you the best attorneys that the insurance company has on staff. So to tie all these together, I think at a minimum, one should have their assets in a trust and really, really good insurance. The most you can do to arm yourself to the teeth is put your investment properties in an LLC, put the LLC in the trust for estate pass-on purposes, and have really good insurance. So for Taryn asking about specific kind of insurance policies I'm talking about, it's the liability portion of that policy that you have on your car, your house, and your investment real estate. And I'm talking about investment real estate today, and you probably didn't think I'd talk about car insurance, but your car insurance, as you can tell now, directly affects your investment property because you don't want to lose that because you got in a bad automobile accident. And someone asked, are you recommending separate LLCs? I commented on that earlier, but yeah, you can put property in separate LLCs if you want. If I lived in a state that didn't charge me per LLC every single year, I most certainly probably would. Someone else maxed out all means as much as you can afford. or coverage for assets. You know what? Have you guys ever heard those horror stories that you see in the news where you get sued, or someone gets sued and they lose not only all their assets, but they also have to pay out future income, right? So you might say, hey, I only got a net worth of $800,000. So why do I need $1 million policy? Why do I need a $2 million policy? What if you lose a lawsuit and the judge says, you got to pay this guy $1 million and you only have 800,000. So give him 800,000. In the next $200,000, you got to pay out through your wages over the next 10 years. Okay. Like those are the horror stories I'm giving you. But insurance is really cheap, guys. Insurance is relatively cheap compared to the protection that it gives you. Someone else saying, so opt for a DBA and a $1 million umbrella, right? DBA. Terry King, please type out a DBA. I don't work in insurance, guys. I don't work in law. So
doing business as.
What's that?
Doing business as.
Oh,
so
that,
like
so opt for doing business as.
So like if your brand is something else, but your LLC, you know, it's like so a DBA is just doing business as another business.
Look, guys, if you're going to get like an umbrella policy, you should name insured entities under it. And I don't know if that's what this question's asking, but this is very important. If you have a business entity and you have a trust and you have your first and last name, which we all have, when you get umbrella policies or any policy, homeowners, automobile, investment real estate, you should name the insured entities. And the insured entities should be you, should be your trust, should be your LLC, should be any business, anything that the insurance company will let you put under it as an insured entity, put it under. And guys, I'm going to end this the way I began it by saying, look, I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm just a guy that's in your shoes as well. And I've been doing this for a while as a consumer. I've been doing it as a realtor. I've been doing it as an investor. And I've seen the pros and cons of each from my vantage point, but don't take my word for it on everything. Talk with a CPA and talk with an attorney that specializes in your state. And they might say that Patrick Kappel guy's crazy. You don't need all that insurance. You need an LLC, or that Kappel guy's crazy. You don't need an LLC. You need all this insurance. That's probably depending who you're talking to. But I'm telling you, just talk with a professional that knows your specific situation, because you're all different. You all have different situations. But I'm telling you, look into these things no matter what, because you want to protect yourself before the lawsuit comes, not after. And these are very affordable means to protect yourself from really, really bad days and massive loss of net worth. What about putting your home that has 4 acres of buildable property in it? Yeah, you can put anything in an LLC and trust. You can put vacant land in a trust. You can put your coin collection in a trust. You can put your grandpa's elk hunting rifle in a trust. You can put whatever you want in a trust. You can't put your children in a trust. You can name them maybe as beneficiaries, but we cannot put humans in trust like a child. But you can put any good that you own into a trust. Sounds like a good scenario to bring up with a CPA and attorney, Susan. Yeah, absolutely, Susan. You should talk with the CPA and attorney. But how do I know you can put land in a trust? Because I got land in a trust. You can put anything you want into a trust. Any other questions? Because we are at the 10 o'clock hour. All right, we covered a lot. I didn't think we'd be able to go 60 minutes, and I didn't even do slides. I could probably talk a lot more about this. State Farm just told me, what's this comment? They haven't been with them long enough to insure my investment property. Okay. Well, guys, I'm with USAA. And Vanessa, you might be with USAA too. If you're a military veteran or you have family in the military, here's a shameless plug. They don't pay me for this, but I'm with USAA, and they are great. In my opinion, USAA gives really good insurance at really good rates.
For insurance, not for mortgage real estate loans.
Yeah, don't use USAA for loans. I would never use them for mortgage loans. So there, I'm giving them a plug and a drain. I don't use them for loans, but I use them for insurance purposes. But you got to be with a military affiliation. Should I put it in an LLC? Yeah, Susan, talk with your attorney. So put property in LLC in that, and a trust. Yeah, if you've got anything, you should have a trust first and foremost, and then put your assets, put your LLCs, put your stocks, your bonds, your retirement accounts, everything in an LLC. Oh, and here's one little tidbit that you can all do today. And this is free. You don't have to pay anyone. You don't have to pay an attorney, a CPA. This is free. Remember how I said when you die, everything goes through probate unless it's in a trust? There's a way to circumnavigate probate for some various accounts. One, life insurance. Just name who you want to name, your spouse, your kids, your charity of choice as benefactor of a life insurance policy. And life insurance might not have to go through that probate, but you can also do something with bank accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts, even investment accounts through brokerages. And it's something called POD, payable upon death. I bet you can log into your bank account, Chase Bank, Bank America, and you can go, you like drill into all the menus and find in your Bank America, Chase, Wells Fargo, whoever you bank with, what happens to your accounts when you die. And you can put payable upon death, and then put your spouse, put your kids, put whoever you want. And as long as your bank has payable upon death, it doesn't have to be in the trust. It skips the trust. It skips a probate. It skips everything. And when you die, that person can come in and say, hey, this is my ID. I'm their spouse. I'm payable upon death. And they get their account. Everything we talked about in 60 minutes, guys, is 60 days worth of education. So I hope you took notes, and I hope you're going to like research it further. Talk with attorneys, search, read, look up payable upon death, and set up everything in payable upon death that you can. Can you set up a trust online or best use attorney? Tamara, I mentioned this earlier. Never set up a trust online. Never work. Online is like the devil, okay? Like I love it for like doing some levels of research, but don't set up like, don't do Rocket Mortgage. Don't do, what's that attorney website? Like you will probably make mistakes. You get what you pay for in life. Get a good attorney, get a good CPA. The money you spend on them, you will get paid back in benefit. It's just like real estate, guys. Should I do a for sale by owner, or should I hire a realtor? Should I set up my own trust, or should I hire an attorney? The answer is the same to both questions, guys. we are all realtors. We know the answer. Yeah, LegalZoom. That's the name. Should I do a for sale by owner? Is the same question. Should I do LegalZoom? Okay. Hire good advice, just like we advise our clients to hire good realtors. Vanessa, anything to add?
No, thank you guys so much. I am in a room full of boxes, so sorry I was late to the party, but like always, Patrick, all of your extensive knowledge, education, and expertise is so valuable to all of us, and we're so grateful. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Good conversation today. We'll have to think about what we're going to talk about next week, but I really love this topic. Hey, and guys, if you have topics you want us to discuss, email Tristan, email LabCoatAgents, email me. My email is patrick.kappel@compass.com. Let us know what you want us to discuss, and we will make that a topic because we're here for you. We're here for you to discuss and answer the questions you have about real estate, investment real estate. Yeah, Vanessa?
You sent it to panelists, not participants.
Oh, well, let me send it to participants. I'm going to send you all my email here in a second. And then, yeah, that way you're not like blowing up Tristan's email. But if you have a specific topic that you want covered at these Thursday morning sessions, just shoot me an email, patrick.kappel@compass.com, and say, hey, I want to learn more about how do you find investment real estate. I want to learn more about taxation. I want to learn more about a 1031. Let me know what you guys want to learn about. And instead of me picking the topics, I think it's a great idea to have you guys pick the topics. More on a self-directed IRA, I might need to bring in a guest on that one then. I haven't done self-directed IRAs, guys. And here's my bottom line. Some people are going to hate me for saying this, but if you have money on the outside that you can invest in real estate, I would not do a self-directed IRA. I would only, because real estate, guys, has tons and tons of tax advantages. Real estate has more tax advantages than an IRA. So why would I put money into an IRA to invest it in something that has even more tax advantages than an IRA? I might as well just take that money, not put it in an IRA, and put it in real estate so that I can take it in and out at any time. Because if it's in a self-directed IRA, you got to go by the rules of the IRA. and you're now stuck in there until you're an old person, unless you want to take it out with penalties. Real estate has more advantages of an IRA. So if we start talking about self-directed IRA, I am going to piss off people that like self-directed IRAs and that sell self-directed IRAs. Because right now, the way tax code's written, you get more benefits keeping your money out of the IRA and just investing straight through into real estate. But maybe you're thinking, hey, I got hundreds of thousands in an IRA and I've got no money in my bank, and I want to invest in real estate. That would be like the only instance where I see, hey, then maybe take your IRA money and invest in real estate. But here's the best thing, guys, if you've got enough money to invest in IRA and you got some money on the side, use your money outside of your retirement accounts to invest in real estate, because it has more advantages than a retirement account. Use your money in your retirement account, not to invest in real estate, because now you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Use that money to invest in the stock market, because now you're diversifying. So all my retirement accounts, I put my money in the stock market, and all my non-retirement money, I put that into real estate. So I'm getting the best of both worlds. I'm getting diversification, and I'm putting money in the most tax advantaged ways possible. And Taryn, I see you're agreeing on that. So yeah, I don't know if I want to bring on someone that talks about self-directed IRAs. I could, if more people ask me to, I will. But I'm not a big fan of them. Ursula, thank you. Yeah, true on both points. So and if that's something you guys want me to talk about, we could talk about, hey, as realtors and advising your investors, what money should go into retirement accounts? What money should go into non-retirement accounts? We can talk about how you should be set up. You shouldn't be a sole proprietor. If you're a realtor, you should not be a sole proprietor. You should probably be an S Corp or a C Corp, depending on how much you're making and how you're structured. So that's another thing we can talk about maybe next week. But shoot me the emails, guys. You got it. It's patrick.kappel@compass.com. Shoot me the emails, and I will try to steer these conversations and these Thursday morning meetups to address what you guys care about. Some of you are emailing me saying, hey, can you send me this? Can you send me those spreadsheets? Can you send me those webinars? Guys, I would love to, but I probably can't because my time is extremely, extremely limited. I barely have time for the 60 or so minutes we do on this because I run a real estate organization. I got a real estate team. I've got over 10 people on my team. We're doing dozens of transactions every single week, and that's my main thing. That's where my head's got to be. So I don't have a lot of time for all of the, I don't want to say this is on the side, but answering hundreds of emails and sending everyone recordings and sending everyone this and that. But there's light on the horizon. My operations manager is setting up a training course that I will do. I've been talking about it for months, and it's probably going to be a couple of months till it's set up because we've got a lot on our plates. But I am going to set up a training course. All things open kimono, it will be paid. Why is it going to be paid? Not because I'm greedy, but I just got to get compensated for my time. Because if I'm putting time into a training course, that's time that I'm not putting into my team and my clients. So if I'm not putting time into team and clients, there's got to be some compensation there. So I'm going to set up a paid training course where we'll talk about this stuff and more. And that is the format in which I will give stuff away, in which I will give out recordings, I'll give out PowerPoints, I'll give out spreadsheets, you name it, okay? But you guys are all in business, so you get it. And if you don't want to do the paid training, that's totally fine. I'll keep doing these things on Thursdays as well. A title expert, I like that. Okay, I can bring in a title expert. I got a good friend, one of the top title reps here in San Diego. So I'll see if I can get him on one of these meetings. He'll love that. All right, guys, I'm going to check out and get back to my day job, which is what you guys do, selling real estate. And I will see you all next Thursday. Have a good one.